it will be recorded, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So if we're gonna stay, just four of us, so we can make it less, lecture and more a talk, and I think most of the thing that I'm gonna talk about them, the tips are, something that I think every parent can relate to them, but I think every parent in this time have, um different experience until now. So feel free. I'm not sure if you're muting or not, but feel free to unmute yourself and ask question during the talk, and yeah, and we will have a conversation more than a talk, and less as a lecture. So, but I can talk also, so I like to talk, so it's okay also. So today, basically, I really wanted to talk about our parenting, especially during these stay actions, or a lot of people. It's really dependent, how the situation caught you in the middle of your life. If you are a working parent or not, if you're just needed to leave work or not. So for every parent, this period, it's a little bit different of how it affected his family, but remember that staycation, because we're gonna meet that narrative and that theme during this lecture. So basically, the tips and the thing that I'm going to talk about are from research from the Attachment and Trauma Network, and I will share it after with you. I will send Andrea the specific resource, and they're doing a lot of things during this time, because and specific the trauma, or the Attachment and Trauma Network, are talking about this period is like in a crisis that hit everybody. And a lot of the thing that I'm going to talk about today is some strategies that we are working sometimes with families after trauma, and this situation and this period for some families is like a trauma that their family has been through. So I'm gonna introduce myself a little bit more. So um, my name is Gilad Amshalom, and I'm originally from Haifa, from Israel. We arrived to Massachusetts, to Cambridge, almost 2 years ago for my wife postdoc at MIT, Liron. And we have two kids. Rotem is 4.5 years old, and Carmel, she's 2 years old now. And so last year I was a stay-at-home dad and taking care of her here, and she started school in September, but starting March, I back to be a stay-at-home dad. So we had a full 6 months of working. I'm a speech language pathologist by practice. I have my BA from Haifa University in Israel, and also I have an MA in infant mental health from the Hebrew University. Um, and in the last 2 years, when we got here, I started to volunteer in the Boston Medical Center in a place that's called Spark Center. And also I started a fellowship that in UMass Boston. It's called Infant Parent Mental Health Postgraduate. And in the last few months before the corona, I started to work in the early intervention in Cambridge and Somerville. And yeah, and since the last 10 weeks, I needed to quit my job, and that basically with my kids at home and my wife still trying to continue to do her research in MIT during their postdoc. So but basically I'm with the kids. So this is the decision that we made in the last 10 weeks. In the last 7 weeks, I started parents group that called Correlation, and in Hebrew it's called Shutafim Lakesher, and we basically started it. It's a volunteer parents group, so we have 6 more colleagues that are, most of them are from Israel, and one more colleague she's from here. And we are running parents group after bedtime for the kids. We start in the parents group around 9, and we start to do it, I think, 2 weeks after the kids the advisory to stay at home, and the closures of preschools and daycares. And we have currently 6 parents group that work in Israel, and they're going to be the last week of those parents group, because in Israel people are starting to go back to routines. But we also had 3 more groups in the USA. So we have 2 groups that from the East Coast and 1 group in the West Coast. And all those groups are leading by colleagues, social workers, psychologists. They're doing everything volunteering. And basically we are, it's more than a support group for the parents, but not just a support group, because we also talking a lot about parenthood, and gives a lot of tips that related to their kids' development, and especially a lot of things that related to kids emotionally and behaviorally changes during this time. So those groups are working, and we are thinking maybe to open few more groups here, because we have some more interest, and the situation in the USA is a little bit different in Israel. So we have some more interest in to open more groups here. And the last sentence is a sentence that I really like. Action is a sign of bravery. So, and every lecture that I'm giving in English, I'm asking for everybody to know that I'm very brave that doing it in English. So forgive me if I have an accent or some spelling or grammar, but feel free to correct, or and Andrea is with me. So if you want to add something, or feel free to make it more than a talk than a lecture. And yeah, so that's about me and my family. And I just shared with Andrea that we have a flight to Israel on Friday. We made a decision to visit the family and to take a, we call it the Corona break, and to visit Israel for at least 2 months until things will be a little bit more relaxed here. It was a very complex decision to make. It's not the best thing to go on a plane these days, but like we will talk today, I think every family in this time are trying to make their, the best decision that can help their family. And yeah, so we can start. So I think that the COVID-19, it's a time of crisis. And I think before I'm going to start to talk about, regulation and how to do parenting and all those tips, I think there are something that we all need to understand all the time. And those things we need to say to ourselves. And I say it to ourselves, and I'm saying to myself every day, that the parenting that we are doing is, the parenting is during a crisis. It's not that our parenting is in a crisis, so it's something that we need to understand all the time, because parents have, we are all the time have those feeling of guilty and blame, and we have a lot of expectation for ourselves all the time, especially that when it's related to our, to our children and how we are raising them. But we need to remember that when there is a crisis, so things are changing, and our parenting is also something that can be the same when during a crisis or not. So it's something that it's always important to rethink and retell ourselves every day that we are doing parenting during a crisis, and it's not a crisis in our parenting. And it's something that I'm always saying, even to, for I'm a practitioner and an infant mental health specialist, and I have crisis in my parenting every day, but I need to remind myself that it's okay, because it's part of this situation. We are in a very unusual situation that is, if I can, when people will talk about this situation in few more years, it's going to be one of the biggest trauma event that the world will, had. Like, we almost now had 10 weeks at home with our kids trying to do homeschooling, because it's not homeschooling, because we need to do our work during that time. And we need to remember that's most of the time when parents or family decided to do homeschooling, they're doing it from a choice, and no one had a choice to do this homeschooling. And also, a lot of people or parents find themselves comparing their homeschooling or what is going on in their home to the thing they are seeing in the social media and Instagram and Facebook, and see a lot of amazing activities with arts and a lot of things that is just most of the people don't have those activities during the day. And I think it's also important to understand that it's not homeschooling. Homeschooling is not to be in isolation. It's not meant not to see other adults and other kids. In homeschooling, kids are going outside, and there is not there is no fear and anxiety to be outside, and things are not that stressed in a house. So it's something that we also need to remember. It's not homeschooling, and I will talk about it also in a few more minutes. That is important for us as parents, not trying to be the teachers, just staying the parents, even though sometimes we get a lot of homework from the teachers at home, at school. But and I think it's pretty related to the other point that I'm trying to say here, that we need to continue to lower our expectation. And I'm saying it because we need every resource that we have as a family, as a parent. We have a lot of things to worry about. Some families have a lot of issues that related to economic issues. Some families, had healthy issues that related to COVID-19 or just related to their life. And we just need to lower our expectation of what we can, do during the day with our kids, and not think all the time about one more activity, or today I didn't have the time to see it about the ABC or during some literacy. You just need to lower our expectation, even even in the way that we acting and behaving as a parent to our kids. It's okay, and it's normal to feel overwhelmed in that time. And when we feel overwhelmed, it's okay not to be super available to our children. And another question that I always asking myself during that time is how many stressor do I have in my life right now. So basically, in the old reality, every family had their own stressor. You need to go to work, you had to go back, you have your bills, you have the regular things. And now, when you are in crisis, every other stressor can just bring you to the point that you are not in your optimal place, related to the regulation that I will talk about it in a few minutes. But also the stress that we are feeling that related to the pandemic, to the media that keep saying, and the news that we're keep hearing, a lot of things that just keep the pressure and the stress at home very high. And any other stressor that adding during the week, and even something that you never thought that can be a stressor, even the cleaning the kitchen in the end of the day, or just the laundry, and just to sit with the kid about his homework can be a stressor. And we always need to think and to see what is that stressor that we can think that is going to change the way I can act during the day. So those are the like few general points that I really want us to understand before I start to talk about the tips. And I'll be happy to hear from you questions or thoughts about those points, or if you know if you see those points in your life during those days. And so I'd be happy if you can share, or yeah. So if not, it's okay also.
I think everyone's like, at least for me, there are definitely times of feeling overwhelmed. And I have to remind myself that we're definitely not the only ones going through this, but sometimes in the moment that's really hard. But I think it's interesting to think about it from this perspective of that this isn't the only stressor. What else is kind of contributing to those feelings? It's an interesting way to look at it.
Okay, thank you, Anja. Okay, so we will start. I think the first point is that thing that we need, that lecture, I made that lecture a few weeks ago for different parents, and I think those points that I'm going to talk about today are still very, we need to do those things every day and to remind ourselves. So the first point is to regulate yourself. So how how can we what makes us calm during the day, what help us to to go over the day. And I'm going to talk more about self-care at the end of the lecture, but I think the different with the regulation part, or how we can regulate ourselves. So it's a very important part for a parent to be regulated, to be available for his children, especially in dysregulation moments, and especially in moments that our kids have big feelings during that time, that sometimes they can't talk about them and can't say with words. So we see a lot of behaviors. So, and then we need to be regulated for them, so they can see us, and then we can contain the situation. So for every parent or for every person, he has different things that can regulate himself. So I know for myself that I need to do a lot of exercise to be regulated. So and I actually can, if there were like few very cold days in the last few weeks, and if I didn't had my exercise, so I just felt how I'm day by day less regulated, and be and just and very not surprisingly, I can see it in my kids, how they can day after day, when I'm not regulated, also starting to be dysregulated. And I think it's really important for us to be available for the children, to help them to regulate themselves. And it's something that kids learn just with their parents. Regulation, or how to regulate yourself, it's something that you need to learn, and you need to exercise every day in your life. Yeah, Luis.
Gilad, can you say something about what regulation means in the life of a child, the preschooler? Like, what is to be regulated or not to be regulated?
Yeah, so when we talk about regulation, try to imagine like like an optimal like a optimal band, like a thing that you're trying to be in. And when you're regulated, you're focused, you're relaxed, you can participate, and you can engage, you can you can explore, like all the things that kids need to do, and play. And when you're not regulated or dysregulated, it can be two different parts. You can be dysregulated. You can be dysregulated by be like hyper regulation. There is a lot of things that giving you too much pressure and too much stress in your um, in that moment. And and also there is a part that you can be hyper regulated. So we can see some kids that are just going to be less available for playing, and try to avoid even interaction. So and the moment that we can see how kids react before they're getting dysregulated, and it's really hard to see it if you're not regulated. So for a preschool point of view, we always want to find this optimal stage for him, you know, and we need to know what makes him up, what makes him down. And definitely, you know, for adult, we get dysregulated during the day all the time. But as an adult, I know that in the morning I need my coffee to be in that optimal zone, and sometimes in the evening I know that I need to do some exercise to go back to that optimal zone because I'm tired, you know. So it's always that game of where is my child, or where am I in that optimal zone, if I'm hypo or hyper. And always it's like a game that you need to understand what helps for you. And like I say, regulation, it's something that no one um, no one get to this world regulated. You know, if we're talking about babies, the first few months are all about regulation between the caregiver and the baby. He signals the mom or the dad that he's hungry and gets food. He signals that he's tired, and the caregiver help him to calm down. And it's something that we are learning. Great for the coffee. It's something that we are learning, and we need to do that exercise all the time. And and the situation, like this situation of being at home all the time and together, we called it a lot of togetherness. And sometimes those moments can be, you learn a lot of, you learn more about your kid, but also there's a lot of moments that you say, just, you know, everybody need that break, and also the kids need that break. And those moments we see them dysregulated. And I think the important part here is to be more self-aware for the parent, to feel when I will talk about it in the self-care part, but to see when or what I need to be regulated. And so we see a lot of, you know, a lot of parents, a lot of adults in the social media. So just use it for good, and go only for uplifting groups inside. You can connect with friends. And, you know, a lot of the main narrative and theme in that time, that we don't have control almost about everything outside. We don't know when we're gonna back to work, when kids gonna back to school, and you know, we are waiting every 2 weeks to hear from the government what's going to be. So we need to let go of our thoughts about things that are outside of our control, and to be more controlling the things that we can control them inside the house, or, you know, and those things are going to transfer to our kids. They can feel those thoughts. Yeah, and I think in you know, in early childhood, kids under age 6, and even I can say even until age 8, they're really the parent-child relationship, and the parent-child interaction during the day are the most important for their regulation. And that can be when they are at school, so it's the the educator or the teacher, but when they are at home, it's the parent that need that co-regulation, that he need to be available for them to regulate them. Yeah, so the second thing that we need to understand during that time, that our kids' behavior, it's basically the way to communicate. Kids are anxious about changes, and they see if we are a little bit more anxious, or if we are in stress, they can feel it. Even if we're not saying that, they can feel it in our tone, they can feel it the way we behave. So if we say behavior is communication, it's not just how the kids are behaving, it's also how we are behaving. It's also communicate them that we are in some kind of in a different place. So if we are in a place that we are very concerned, very anxious, we will see some behaviors in our children that related to control or uncertainty. And we can see a lot of big feelings during the day. So basically it's really depend about the age, but we see behaviors that related to that related to the way kids want to feel safe again. And how kids can feel safe, it's the way they can feel that they have the control in their life. So most of the time, or most of the reality, they have the routines, they have you know, they know where to go and how the days are, you know, the days are going to be. So today's we're going to go to school, and then mom is going to pick me up, and then we have dinner. And the last few weeks, even though we are in the same place, for kids, they lost a lot of things they used to. And 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 of course parents also lost a lot of things they're used to, but we need to understand that the kids don't have sometimes the words to express it. So we can see some behaviors that related to eating. We can see behaviors that related um, to tantrums, a lot of tantrums, or even behaviors that related to some kind of regression in other parts that they were in a different phase before this period. And how to, you know, how to deal with dysregulated child, or with kids that have a lot of behaviors during that time. So obviously punishments and be very disciplined, it's not the best in that time. Parents need to be, and this is the hard part, we need to be much more emotional available for our kids, and we need to be, um, we need to understand that what they are, you know, that their behavior is something else, you know, the thing that they are feeling, and the thoughts that they have. So we need to, first we need to witness that. We need to understand that we can't just focus on their behavior. We need to take the other step and say, okay, what is going on. And in a few more slides, I will talk about how to make those assortment, and how to make the children understand that we can see what they have. If you want to share, or Andre, if you want to add something about, you know, behaviors in kids during that time. Yeah, I know you had some, you know, some talks with parents, if you want, or, you know, if someone here want to share about things that they have, and you know, that they're dealing with, we can also, you know, talk about that. But I think behaviors, you know, in every time, but specific in that time that there are everybody at the home and we're spending much more time, we have the option, you know, to work on that with the kids. And the way to do it is just first to understand that the behavior is just the way they communicate with us, and it's not that thing that we need to focus on in the behavior.
I don't want to step in if anybody else has questions or wants to ask something first. No, I think as educators, it's important for us to realize that oftentimes when we're working with kids, especially young kids, they don't have the vocabulary to tell us what they're feeling in the moment. And sometimes when they're frustrated, or they're anxious, or they're hurt, or they're just feeling feelings, they can't necessarily tell us what they're feeling, but they're showing us something. Whether it's a tantrum, or I don't want to do this right now, or whatever it is, it's their way of, and I think you're right, it is completely their way of communicating. And right now, as the parents, we're having to decipher what that communication is. And it may be very different than the kind of communication that they have shown in a classroom environment. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a little bit of kind of piecing together, what are they trying to tell me? What is the situation around me trying to tell me? And what can I do to kind of help them work through this?
Yeah, so I think that most of the things that, you know, from the parents group that I had to, you know, that the last few weeks, and the things that we're hearing from parents, and also the thing that I'm, you know, seeing here at my house, I think most of the kids in this time need a lot of, you know, they need more about the sense of control and sense of of knowing what's going to happen, because even though we are at home now and it's look like there is nothing that is changing, that is the thing that kids are, they don't have the option cognitively or even, mental to understand where this thing is going to be. So there is some kids, it's really dependent about their age, like kids around 5 years old or 6 years old, they they get used to that routine, and for them it's okay. But kids, around 2 years or 3 years, when they're still not understanding until the end, what is the reality, and then they have the Zoom class or just, more videos, their reality get a little bit confused, and they see us parents, some parents wasn't at home a lot of time, and then they see the parents at home all the time, or they're spending more time with their spouses, more with their brothers and sister. A lot of things there are, they didn't used to do, didn't used to have in their home, and sometimes they just need, us to see that, and even to use with words, and this is the next thing that I want to show you. So we want to calm, assure our children. So Santa's like, yes, things are different, and there is a lot that is still the same. We always and every day, we need to repeat about the thing that didn't change at that time. We're still having, our bedtime story. We still have our backyard to play. We still can do art together, or we're still here, our your mommy and daddy. So we always need to think about, and to assure with them the things that are different. Yeah, I know that school is closed now and it's really sad and we missed our teacher, but we always need to talk about the things that are still the same. And something that I did a few times with my kids, both of them, is just, to talk, or even to make a list of the things that didn't change in their life. So here in Massachusetts, we had a lot of luck, that we can still go outside for the families that decided to go outside. So for my kid, for Rotem, to drive his bike is something that it was really important for him, and I can't think how, we will got through these 10 weeks without him going outside with his bikes. So we can always talk with them, and even make a list of the things that didn't change in their life. And I think that the thing that we need to do for our kids and also for ourselves is to normalize the anxiety that everybody is feeling right now, and understand that everyone is in the same page. Yeah, we all feel this way, but we can do something to feel less worried. So in the moment that we are saying it to our kids, we basically saying it to ourselves also. And as parents in that period of time, we need all the time to validate ourselves also, and to understand that everybody is going that, very hard time. And I think was when I'm thinking about the parents group again. I think this is one of the most common with every family that talk about how they feel good to see, other parents once a week, and to see that everyone is very tired at the end of the day, and everybody talks about the same things. So normalize anxiety, and to model good emotional tools is something that we need to give to our children, but also it's something that we need to do for ourselves, for our daily, for our daily, to just to get through that. Yeah, so there is a lot to talk about structure and routines, especially for kids, in their early childhood. So again, I saw a lot of amazing visual schedule and a lot of ideas in Facebook and Instagram and in Pinterest. A lot of amazing way to 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 tell the kids what's going to be. But I think the main thing in structure and for routine for kids, it's not about, you know, what is going to be in that routine and about structure. So if we can keep, if we can stick to routines, like even just bedtime, some, you know, morning ritual, like a song, or like we're doing some kind of a yoga activity with our here at home, but it's not supposed to be super, you know, complex art project every day. It just need to be something that we can do every day. So stick with the routine of bedtime, meals, sleeping, and you know, napping during the day is really important. And for kids, especially that time, there is a lot of stress, and for even for the immune system, a lot of sleeping during that time is really important. So keep the nap time the same hour, and you know, just the usual routines, but you don't need to do too much. And I think every parent during that period of time had that promise that he he made for his kids. So yeah, we will do that project tomorrow, we will do that thing tomorrow. But we it's one of the thing here in that situation, that we can't control about things. We don't know what's going to be. So don't make promises that you can't keep, and you don't know what else, you know, will be postponed. and and I think every family need to understand what works for her. And there is families that, you know, their kids are more in the art projects, and you know, so they're doing a lot of arts. And there's family that their kids are, you know, can play by themselves most of the day. So it's really depend about the family, but it's really depend about what you can handle, and if you need to work during that time. So, you know, it's something that you also need to understand, that you can't do everything. You can do homeschooling and working during that time, and it's okay. It's not something that you're supposed to do a full-time job and homeschooling your child. So it's all about the expectation that we talk at the first, but also to understand what works for you as a parent, and also what works for your kids. But I think the main thing here is to keep routines, you know, basic routines every day. Don't skip bedtime, don't skip breakfast, don't skip dinner together, don't skip the I don't know, the even screen time. You know, it's something that we can use as a routine, you know, screen after nap time or screen afternoon. Another thing that can help kids get through the day and know what they're gonna have during that day. And those things are giving the kids more sense of control. Okay, we know we know how bedtime is going to be, we know how shower is going to be, we know that we're going to have 2 stories before bedtime, we know we're going to have screen time in at 4 p.m. So all those things are really important to stick, but don't go over your head, you know, with a lot of activities. Yeah, feel free to, Lucy, you want to say something? I thought I saw your hand. Oh, okay. It's okay. Yeah.
Is there any benefit to talking about things that they're looking forward to? So for example, our 3-year-old walks by Temple Emmanuel and says, I can't wait for school to reopen, and he talks about all of his classmates, and I don't know whether to indulge that a lot or whether to try to distract him to something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. What do you think? What is your gut saying to you?
I'm not sure. We talk about it for a few minutes and then we move on. But mm-hmm. My inclination is to, if he brings it up, then I go with it.
Yeah. So I think, you know, so your instinct is right, because I think that we don't want to ignore the thing that our, you know, kids are saying to ourselves. Like we just say, behaviors, or, you know, those centers, the way they connecting with us, and And like I said before, kids lost a lot about, lost a lot, their friends, their school, their teacher, Temple Emmanuel for them. It's, that this is where their reality. So we definitely don't want to ignore that. We want to give that a place. And I will, in in the age of 3, to think like what is going to be, it's something that can be very hard cognitively, to just, time, and how to even understand what is tomorrow or a few weeks, or, and even us, we don't know when Temple Emmanuel is going to be open. And I think that you can take those questions that he asked you, and I think what he's trying to tell you is that he's really miss his school, and he's really miss what he had, not what's going to be. So I think in those moments he's trying to tell you, Mom, I miss Temple Emmanuel. And I think we need to give a place to that, to those feelings, because the more place that we will give them, or the more assurance that we can give our kids, they will feel that it's okay to feel that. And for kids in those ages, sometimes those feelings can be afraid of them, if we're not giving them enough place, or if we're not saying that it's okay to miss Temple Emmanuel. Sometimes they can say, I'm not sure, I'm feeling those feelings, but I don't know what to do with them. So I think your instincts are great. If he's talking about it and brings it up, that's something that you definitely can talk about. But I think even if he talks about it, not if you're going through Temple Emmanuel, you can just, create a place for that, create a space for these feelings, and say,
I think validating his feelings
yeah.
is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And not kind of brushing over them, but acknowledging that he is having the feelings, but not necessarily promising anything more than what he's saying.
Yeah, so I think this is the moment that we can, as a parent, and and not just as a parent, we can understand that kids, and even us, we can promise anything, because we don't know what is going to happen. So instead of talking about what is going to happen, we can go back to his good experience that he has in Temple Emmanuel, and be with him in those moments after validate, and so. And I think it's something that is, really help kids to put their anxiety down a little bit, and let them feel that, the feeling that they have is something that they can talk with the parents, and parents are seeing those moments. And so I think the next slide is a little bit talk about that, but about playfulness and how to make the days more fun, and but no, I want to talk more about what you asked, but this is, yeah, I will talk about it in the end again. But I think another thing that we can, help us during that period is try to make some islands of fun during the day. You're not supposed to be, the best teacher at the wall during that day, but you need to understand that there is few things that kids really needs for, for their brains, for what they're used to be. So everything that's related to movement, to rhythmic, to music, to dancing, is something that, here we are lucky that we can go outside. The parents the parents group in Israel, they had 6 weeks they couldn't go more than 100 meters from their home. So if they lived in the city, they didn't have nothing. They don't have a backyard or a porch, nothing. So if you can go outside and you feel safe, go every day. If you can do it at least half an hour. Music, dancing, everything with movement really helps to reduce anxiety, and reduce and to make kids feel more, more relaxed. And I think also for us, we need to take advantage of those days, and to make some fun, and think what bring you laughter to your family. If that's those games, jokes, or funny movies. I heard a lot of parents saying that's the first time they see, Frozen. It's just it's not a funny movie, but you can pick a different movie to see with your kid. But just be with the kids and do some fun things with, and don't think too much about the curriculum and homework and things that related to their development. Just be with them and have fun, and it's something that really can help you and them, and to self-regulation like we talk, and even just to break down some some really stressed part of the day. And I think if I want something you all go out after this lecture, is this slide, focus on you. And I think a lot of educator, a lot of schools try to give parents during that time a lot of activities for the kids. Try to make more Zoom classes and all lectures in online, or how to help our kids. But basically we need to help ourselves first, because like we talked about the part of in the regulation, if we are not regulated, if we are not there, and if we can if we can be them for them, so we can do nothing. So I think the most important thing to understand that self-care isn't selfish. Your children need you to remain healthy physically and emotionally, and we actually need to be very intentional about that we need to do for ourselves every day, to do for ourselves something, so like I said, if I don't if it's a really cold day, thank God it's the last week was amazing weather outside. But if I didn't have those 2 days, I need to understand what I can do inside our apartment that it will be just for me. So it can be baking, it can be the 20 minutes with your coffee, that can be just a phone call to your friend, but it needs to be something intentional that you do for yourself, that you are doing for yourself. That feeling of taking care of yourself is really important. And obviously you need to ask for help if you think you need that. And I think another great thing that we need to understand, that if we are losing it, or if we had a really bad moment with our partner, with our children, we need to be gracious with ourselves. And and like we are saying to our children, we're gonna do over, we're gonna extend it to ourselves. We need to understand that it's okay to lose it. We can't stay during that time without lose it, but it's more important after we lose it to understand that it's okay, and to give ourselves a do-over for that. And I think this is the most important slide in that time, because if we won't do our self-care, it will be just a lot more harder for for us to be there for the kids, and also just to be able to give them all the things that we need to give in that time. Yeah, so, and I think the last slide before we can do some kind of a conclusion, it's the way that we need to reach out to others if we feel the social distancing is not social isolation. So you can use we have Zoom, we have WhatsApp calls, we have all the video calls that we can do. Use technology to connect with others. And I think if you feel that you need help, that's a you need to reach out. And I know a lot of parents that for them to reach out is something that they never thought they will do. But in that time, we are in a very, like I started, and I will go back to that again, we are in a very unique situation. We are all in some kind of a crisis. that is continue to be for now. It's almost 10 weeks, and it's going to be for 3 weeks, but so, or at least at least for 6 or 7 weeks. But I'm not saying for, you know, to be in the downside, but I'm saying that if you feel that you need to reach out, do it. It's something that you need to do it for yourself, and of course for your family. And yeah, so now if you have some, you know, questions, or if you just wanna, you know, want me to be clear about specific things, or if Andrea, you want to add something.
No, I just want to say thank you, Gilad, so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was great.